reaching the right audience programmatically and the art of sustaining them. Intrigued to know more? Well, this panel is the perfect one. We're talking about the Indian advertisers who prefer to buy media on a direct basis from publishers due to various factors, be it transparency, publisher accountability, feasibility of innovations, better campaign performance. But programmatic advertising is being judged to be the future of digital media buying. What will nudge the marketers to traverse this chasm? It is time for us to know this and much more. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as the stage is already set, it is time for me to have the honor of inviting our esteemed panelists. First up, our session chair, the very vibrant General Manager, XAXIS, we have Dimpy Yadav joining us. Thank you, Dimpy. Joining Dimpy on the stage would be our esteemed panelists. First up, SVP and Head of Digital Marketing, HDFC Bank, Jahid Ahmed. The Country Head and Managing Partner, Integrated Media, DDB Mudra Group, Rammohan Sundaram. The Head of Marketing, Motorola Mobility India, Shivam Ranjan. You know, they say that if the claps resound the atmosphere, it is better for the panel, so let's get that on. The National Sales Head, Lemma, Dheeraj, Soni.
And as the panel talks about Adtech, where we talk about that how audience targeting plays a very vital role when it comes to programmatic ecosystem. And we have some great questions with us, so let's not take a lot of time and just deep dive into it. So then let's talk about targeting approaches. We all had been through a very bad phase, which was pandemic, and we know that tough times do not last while tough brands do, and which is where all of us are here. So let's ask a question, the first question on that note, that post-pandemic, we could see 2022 as a year, which was full of changes, right? We did not know how to navigate, what to do, and it was a times of very much uncertainty. And when we talk about agency or, Lemma as a partner or even brand side, I would really, and everybody I'm sure is very much keen to understand that how your thoughts had been around, and especially post-pandemic, we all were compelled and pushed towards moving towards online, even as an audience and even as a marketeer. So I would really ask you, Dheeraj, that what do you think that how audiences played a vital role for you in terms of, providing a strong Adtech ecosystem?
So for us, like, building on top of the line, funnel is very important. So in terms of our audience, we have to ensure, the brief is, talking about like, and the objective of the entire campaign is to reach out that specific audience. So these days, like, when we talk about like, one-to-one medium, let's say mobile and web. On the other hand, we have a like, DUH, which is one-to-many. So if anyone has heard about like Google Sandbox, so they are talking about group of people who are having a similar interest. So using those platforms, which are like beyond like privacy rules and beyond cookieless world, can give you the right access of that audience. So I think the one-to-many mediums like DUH or let's say CTV kind of a medium which can give you that perfect reach.
Yeah, very well, very well. So Jahid, I would also want to understand from you because, from the brand that you come from, and it's very targeted media strategies that you always had been devising. And I'm sure post-pandemic, that was the need of the hour. So how did you look at audience targeting, and what role does that play differently from pre-pandemic times for you?
Yeah, hi. One, I can resonate about the sound part of it. I think, yes, we can't hear anything. So thank you so much sir, for that. Yeah. So, okay, now coming back to this point, I'm sure the audience can. So we'll continue without losing time. So yeah, I think pandemic allowed us to reflect and worked a lot on the MarTech. And a lot we can resonate with what Mr. Basu was presenting right now, because the viewability has gone omni-channel. Okay. And we also had to be prepared in terms of today it's the generation of commerce, be it the BFSI, be it the normal e-commerce industry, right? So what we are trying to do is we use the time to set up the entire platform in such a way that the entire media can be evolved for the measurement point of view, which is not restricted to the clicks and the leads, but can be connected to the end commerce, which allows us to go and talk vociferously in terms of pitching that more and more media is required. Okay. So what happened was when there was a media dark in between, obviously there was no media dark, we channelized our views to something else, but when we can easily see the kind of growth or the degrowth that's happening in organic. Okay. And if it's happening, so what should we do in terms of the complete media? And we channelized in terms of the entire setup of MarTech, in terms of API integrations. And we have done the entire measurement setup, which is called Ads Data Hub. Okay. And what we have done is, with the setup of Ads Data Hub, so let's say you are seeing an ad on cards, credit card ad, right? But you're not spending at that point of time. You'll be spending offline, or you're spending at a later point of time. What's the impact of my programmatic or my CTV view vis-a-vis the actual buy of it? And that's possible with an Ads Data Hub setup that we are trying to do. And we also see, or rather foresee, that with cookie deprecation, an Ads Data Hub setup of measurement will be significant to ensure that the campaign gets its due in terms of right measurement metrics.
Right, Jahid, and I cannot, really kind of second this thought much more than what you have really put across, because when you talk about connected TV or offline channels or even your digital strategies, that really boils down at the core of omni-channel strategies. And I feel that Ram, nobody can be the best person in this panel than to really focus more around it, because when you're working across the brands, across channels, across, Adtech partners, so I really want to pick up your thoughts onto it in terms of when you look at omni-channel strategies, which is where audience remains the focus point. And there's so many channels coming up, and India as a market, we all know, there's a lot of fragmentation there. So how do you see omni-channel kind of bringing a solve, which is not only for one brand, but across the categories?
Okay, first up, I just heard my name. I heard omni-channel strategies. It's extremely difficult to understand what the other person is saying. You might want to just switch off this speaker to begin with. It's impossible to, I couldn't hear any of what you guys said. So, nevertheless, so since we discussed, so we are in a better place, so I'm glad that we did. Otherwise, I would have just said something very different. Anyway, so on omni-channel specifically, there is a complete flow which is very important for marketers to first understand how they're going to capture their audience attention, right? Now, each of these audiences have very different journeys. So people confuse between multi-channel and omni-channel. One is in silos. The other one is seamless, which is omnichannel is super seamless. Now that experience is not yet peaking the way it needs to in the Indian market. It's just gone worse on the speaker. But what I'm trying to say is that the seamlessness that is required has a lot of CX experience. When I say CX experience, it includes what you're communicating at the first level, what you're communicating on the second level, and then the personalization, and then following up through if somebody drops out. Irrespective of whether it's on the internet, it's on Do, or it's on the mobile internet. Now, I'll give you an example which we spoke of in the US about 8 years ago. In New York, there's a store right opposite NASDAQ, and we all know the big screen that exists right there, right? I bought a Nike shoe, full price. I walked down. I used to live there, so I had an app where there was constant notifications that happened. So that's first party data. So you also capitalize on the notifications that you get, so you know how your consumer reacts. Because it's not a cookie-less world is now, but people have started practicing cookie-less world a lot earlier. So when I crossed that, they clearly knew that I bought a product, and there was a lot of crowd. So at least 100 odd people would have walked out of the store. In 30 seconds, I had an ad which showed me, which said, because of the Bluetooth which was on, and people who had their Bluetooths on were also received the same message on the app and on the screen. It said, you're going to get a 40% discount if you're going to turn around, walk back to the store. I don't know how many did. I did. I bought a shoe which I didn't like, but I got a 40% discount on a Jordan. Right now, so that kind of seamlessness does not exist. So while do and all of that is there in India, we got so many regulatory issues which probably will not have all cities covered, for example. So localization and personalization is also very important, and the flow of the transaction, which brings back a consumer back to you, whether it is online or offline, also needs to be seamless. Otherwise, it's not multi-channel. It's not omni-channel. It's just multi-channel, right? It's all in silos. So we did that pretty well during the pandemic because we understood. It's just another 30 seconds. It's like television debate, but what I mean is we understood that the discovery patterns have changed. E-commerce was becoming bigger. So you also see that in the trends on Google, right? People don't go look for product searches anymore on Google. They're all going to Flipkarts and Amazons of the world. So we moved a lot of our focus towards e-commerce. We understood that the first-party data is important, so chatter is equally powerful. So we designed a model towards ORM. So we captured both those sides of it, and then got it back into the scheme of things, and then used programmatic to start targeting those people off deck from where they left off. So I wouldn't say it's omni-channel, but still we tried our best to ensure that that seamlessness of experience existed. If I answered your question.
No, absolutely, Ram. And I think you have covered all of it in a nutshell. In fact, you have touched base all the topic. And I feel that, when, of course, you talk about omni-channel, Adtech comes into place, data comes into place, and which plays a bigger role. And as you rightly, mentioned these two words, which is, I'm sure, favorite of all, which is localization and personalization. So I call it hyper-personalization. So I would really want to ask this question to you, Shivam, because, when you are working on a brand where category is very competitive, I would say, we have all kind of, handset brands coming in and competing against you all, right? So it becomes highly important that you talk about very personalized approach or creative communication, or even, for that matter, you're targeting methodologies. So Shivam, when you work on your brands or try to solve a complex challenge, so how bigger role I would say that localization or personalization plays for you?
Massive. So very clearly, one simple word, massive. Just to give a background, right, in our industry, we've got, Motorola has products across segments. So we've got products which are catering to the less than 10K market. We've got products in the mid segment which cater to the 10 to 20K segment. And then we've got premium products beyond that, and then flagships like Razer also, which are foldables. Every consumer who's eyeing for a product in a different segment has different requirements. And like you said also, there is competition, there are competitive brands who are playing in those respective segments also. So I think it is extremely important for us to identify what is the differentiating factor that we have, and then relate it to the consumer need and serve it to him at a personalized level. So let me start with one example. So one of the latest products that we've launched, and this is really recent because the product goes on sale today, it's called Moto E13. It's a mass segment product, a 6999 product. And when we were doing our research, we found that, a lot of people, in fact, most of the brands focus these products on entertainment, right? They say that the biggest need for consumers in this segment is entertainment, hence, let's just focus on that. But one of the things that we found out was that consumers actually said the biggest pain point for them was that products in this segment hang, and they lag a lot. They don't work enough. So we ensured that that was one of the hooks that we catered to, and we started targeting consumers with that mindset. Gaming, for example, you would not target for consumers in the sub 10K segments normally, right? But because of that insight, we were also sending personalized communication to people who are interested in gaming to buy that handset because it could support gaming in that price point. Another thing that we found was that consumers, while they were buying a 6,000-7,000 rupee phone, they said, we don't want a phone that looks like a 7,000 rupee phone. We want a phone that looks a little more premium. So again, that was one thing that we brought in the product, and then we communicated it to consumers, personalized it to their requirements by saying, hey, this is a product that stands out, that makes you stand out. And that brought in consumers to, interact with it. The engagements have been through the roof for this product. And the tagline for this product was, Atke nahi hatke. And that's something that we also did in about 10 languages in India. So both personalization, identifying the key needs, and then serving them customized communication that motivated them to buy the product, break through the clutter of the competition. And third, to also ensure that we were doing it in languages to be able to cater to the audiences that were consuming content in their respective languages. So very important, and not just for the mass segment, goes across, but I just gave this example because it's recent and it made sense. I hope that answered.
Absolutely, Shivam, absolutely. And I would say that, especially you focus so much on consumers and their insights. It goes back on the fact that you need to have, data collection of first-party audiences because that's how you can drive a personalization. So, Jahid, I would want to understand from you because you come from a brand which is a very reputed and trusted brand even for consumers, right? And I'm sure that even in your media strategies or investments or the thoughts around it, when it comes to first-party data and the change in policies, privacy policies, the way it's being governed in India these days also, I'm sure you're going very responsible towards it and there's a thought and actions being taken around it. So I would want to understand from you that, especially when we focus so much on audiences these days in digital, what is your uptake at the back end where you also talk about protecting those audiences and their activation within digital media landscape?
Yeah, so obviously we are completely governed very strictly, right? So there is, thing is that, for every rule that comes in, it makes it difficult for consumers to complete journeys. Okay, so if you have to open the camera and for that you have to give me consent, that means every time you open a camera, you have to click on a consent. Okay, I'm happy to take it. It will be a deterrent for you guys. Okay, for every time you click on an Aadhaar consent going through it, I'm happy to take it. You have to, and then don't blame that the bank is giving more and more convoluted journeys. Okay, having said that, okay, I think we are very strict in our policies. In fact, HDFC Bank as a website, we are completely, every consent, cookie policy consent, we are completely aligned. And at the back end, what we do is we have a complete suite of CDP that we are creating because at no cost we can compromise on reach, right? And give a great example on product personalization. If I may just talk about in terms of Adtech personalization, the way we are doing, we launched our campaign on debit card EMI. Generally, an ad would have been of refrigerator, washing machine, TV, mobile. All you can get in your debit card EMI. Yeah. That's how it used to happen. When we launched, okay, with the number of, with first party data, completely in a private zone, okay, the way we launched this campaign, we did 65,000 personalizations on the fly. So you were talking about gaming. So the gamer, when they were seeing the ad, so we obviously understood that this cohort has the propensity to go for the next handset. So when the handset was shown to them, the screen to a gamer was a gamer, to a corporate guy was a corporate-led offer, to a sports person was something else. So everything was changing on the fly. If it's a car, the car, let's say today if you're looking at a car, to a spinster, I don't show a life family size photo to all. To a spinster, it might be an hatchback, and if he or she loves a hill station, it's the hill station at the background. So that's the kind of personalization we do, even nudging to the subconscious mind, and not only to ensure that we get a much better kind of click-through on all those campaigns, which we are seeing, the kind of growth that it's happening. So at the back end, we are ensuring that we are creating a CDP of this entire base, where no way data gets exposed, okay, and there is no, and we cannot afford it, right? So, and we are creating multiple digital footprints, okay. What are the footprints to be used internally? What are the footprints to be used externally so that we don't compromise on reach, we don't compromise on data, yet can roll out the campaigns effectively. And because we can take pride in the number of first-party data that we have, so that should not be a concern in terms of reach. But it's just about how do we now integrate and roll out the campaigns. That's what we are focusing on.
Thank you, Jahid. And it becomes very meaningful when it comes for you because, of course, for a bank category, of course, first-party data is the central port for you when it comes to activation of your media strategies. And when you talk about, you cannot compromise on reach, you cannot compromise on your objective goals. I think that's one word that, Ram, I'm sure you keeps on hearing coming from an agency background, right? And you're not only working with one sector in terms of category, but across. So for every advertiser, it becomes a different meaning for them when it comes to activation of reach or collection of first-party data audiences. So what is your uptake on it? Like, what do you hear from advertisers when it comes to first-party data or a CDP? Is it a prime importance for all categories these days, or do you see only one category moving more towards it? I just want to hear from you, what is your uptake on it?
So banking and finance as a category is very, very advanced. Those are the first guys who actually adopted internet in India, right, back in the day. So that as a category alone, the rest of the categories that exist, they're still in the process of understanding the nuances of what is the difference between collecting this data and as third-party data, and how is it that I'm going to deploy it vis-a-vis the cookie scenario today. And most of them rely on our advice simply because they just don't have the grip of the situation. And that's the reality. I'm not trying to demean anybody. It's about how people are progressively adopting something. And that progressiveness is visible in the BFSI category simply because of the nature of the business. So we have to continuously educate them as to what is the importance of having a CDP. That itself is a big issue at this point in time. So we are just letting it happen with time, and when that scenario emerges, you have no choice, right? I mean, if privacy comes into play, you're entering into a cookieless world, you need to have a parachute, so at least to save yourself at that point in time. So there will be situations where people are going to panic, and they will either have to adopt or die. There are only two options. There's no in-between story there. So I'm hoping, like how new technologies get adopted in time, they will have very little choice but to start adopting to the technology that is being made available, like how BFSI category has adopted the scenario. But it's not true at all that, I mean, I can tell you for a fact that I'm sure you're facing it in your daily work life too. So you spoke about a campaign that you wanted to launch, right? with a 12 crore budget. So it's just that category which is very vibrant and progressive in nature in terms of adoption. But over time, it will change.
Right, absolutely. And as you rightly said, that technologies keep on evolving, and hence, we like it or not, we have to evolve too. And Dheeraj, nobody can be better on this table when you talk about, driving your force with the technology, because Lemma as a partner, when it comes to DOH, I think is the only key partner in this nation these days who's actually coming forward and evolving this entire category all by itself, right? So, in interest of time, I would want to pick up this question for everybody, and to starting with you, Dheeraj. What shall be that one undeniable reason, as per you, to invest and scale in data-driven audience planning approach within digital media sector?
Okay, so data gives us a signal. So if you get a signal which is actually giving a view and vision as well. So if you can keep on getting those signals, so you can take decisions on the basis of the data, what data are saying. So let's just take example. There's one brand who is into vacuum cleaner product. So their data is saying that their buyers are majorly who actually own a cat. So it's giving you discovery. So discovery is also important. So if you are not using any kind of data, or let's say your MarTech platforms and your Adtech platforms are working in a silos, you won't be able to do that discovery. So discovery is very much important. So data can give us that view what my audience or existing customers are behaving at all the digital touch points. So if you can invest on MarTech platform, if you can actually marry that that integration with the multiple your legacy system, you can actually conclude it where my audience is behaving, how to capitalize on that. So you can actually state that entire journey. Like Ram mentioned his own journey of buying 2 shoes in a one instant itself only. So actually, Ram was getting exposed to OH, then to a 1 tool system, okay? Because that all the tech platforms are integrated. The data point immediately given a signal, okay, Ram is there. He's an in-market buyer to buy shoes. Why don't you give him a discount and get the attribution done on an offline store? So that sort of marry has to be there between the legacy system. I think that's something is the future.
Yeah, very fair, well said. So, Shivam, over to you. What does the future seems like to you, and what is that one undeniable reason?
I mean, one.
Working, yeah.
Yeah, I think it works. Thanks. All right. So one undeniable reason for sure for me will be ROI, right? I mean, everything put together, I mean, of course, data-driven marketing will give you better targeting. It will give you better, visibility. It will get you better efficiencies. At the end of the day, I mean, let's not run away from the fact that marketers today have to be very, very conscious about ROI, right? And that is what gets us moving. Everything is linked to the revenue. The more you generate, the more you get in terms of spends, right? So very clearly, the one reason, if you ask me, that's ROI, and data-driven marketing will support that for sure, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So I would ask this question to Ram now, because ROI as a word is what we keep on hearing a lot, and that becomes one undeniable reason for agency, of course, to forefront, right? So Ram, what is that one undeniable reason which, not for you, but as per you, which marketeers and brands should really go for when it comes to investments, especially within digital sector?
See, programmatic has been in existence for a while now, right? Uh, Most people are exposed to Google. All of us love it. But there's also a world outside of it. And that world needs to be addressed only when you have enough and more confidence of how you're going to run those campaigns at that point in time and at what scale. So there is no doubt, as see India, see in Southeast Asia or in let's say US, it's very different. India as a country, demographically, culturally, we want results now. So the pressures on every investment is going to be at the highest peak for every marketer. So if you don't show him the traction, nobody's going to wait for you for 3 months. And it's unfortunate, but if you need to have a successful programmatic campaign on the long run, you need to have the patience to run that campaign for 3 months without even expecting the kind of result that you're pressurized with. Because that investment is going to last you for the next 1 full year. Things will change after that. But that pressure is the reason why people are not able to grow outside of one ecosystem, which is either Google and sometimes now Facebook, because you want scale, you want results now. So we are very different as human beings as compared to how the West is. So that's why there's only one platform which is thriving, but over time, you have very little choice, because if transparency is the key, then you have no choice but to use platforms which are going to give you that kind of transparency that exists.
Absolutely, and thank you, Ram, for focusing on this, because programmatic, of course, remains a very key topic close to my heart. But closing this panel, I would really want to pick your brains, Jahid, on the fact that what is your one undeniable reason to invest and scale within digital sector, and that too when it comes to audience data-driven strategies?
So data-driven operating model, DDOM is what we are calling it. That's the buzzword, and it's very important to scale up data-driven operating model. Okay, and that starts from CRM to MarTech to Adtech to suppression, because there are any kind of industry, there are multiple backend systems. There is a loan decisioning system, there is a CRM system, there is a customer base, how all of these things can come together so that media wastages don't happen. So the entire data-driven system has to be at par. Second is the whole suppression model. If a thing has been bought, it has to be suppressed, and they cannot be shown, because they have to be then upsold, cross-sold in a different product. How can we put that into place? Third, very important, is the measurement metrics across the IDA funnel. There cannot be one measurement metrics across the entire funnel, because audience have different journeys. So awareness, interest, desire, action. What are the distinct measurement parameters that you are fixing in each of these? Has to be very important, and then the campaign objective has to be set accordingly. Final, the creative formats that you are doing accordingly, which has to then justify the objectives. I think that's the kind of pillars that we have to kind of operate in, so that we justify the scenario. Yeah.
So we have a lot that we have discussed today, which is we have omni-channel strategies, and we talk about data attribution models, and one favorite word that I could take away from today's panel is DDOMs. So while we keep talking about data-driven audience strategies, but I think yes, if we talk about holistic perspective, DDOMs is the right word. And maybe in my next PPT, actually, I'm going to steal that word, DDOMs, which is data-driven operating model, not just audience strategies, but yes, you're talking about entire Adtech, entire MarTech, and that fairly covers all of it. You talk about, audiences, you talk about activation measurement, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.